You are not broken, you are rising. Welcome to Rise Up and Heal, the podcast that helps you reclaim your worth, rewrite your story, and heal forward. I'm Annie. Welcome to this episode. And today I have the gorgeous Linda, all the way from Canada, who is speaking with us today. Linda is the author of The Road of Love and Hope. Linda also promotes her daughter's book, which she wrote back in year 10. Andrea's book is Spooky Meets a Friend. Linda is also qualified with certificates of professional grief and development, coping with child loss and grief, and bereavement counselling. Linda, thank you ever so much for joining us on Rise Up and Heal today.
Thank you so much, Annie, for having me here. It's my pleasure to be here, talk about my story that I call my love story, about my daughter and myself and my journey. Um, I guess I can say a little bit about myself first, which you already did. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I am a retired nurse of 37 years. I spent those years looking after people in the community, hospital settings, nursing home settings, doctor's offices, and the latter part of my career was in the community, giving nursing services to people in their homes that required it. I'm a happily married woman of 28 years. We have a blended family of 5 grown children, 4 here on earth and 1 in heaven. We have 10 grandchildren and we have 5 great-grandchildren. So I'm very blessed. And 2 lively puppies that keep me quite active. Um, my, yeah, my story starts with my daughter, Andrea, who was 27 years old. And I always say she was at the prime of her life. You know, she had accomplished what most girl dreams of. Um, she was always good in school. She went to college, became a social worker. She was working with the youth of our community, girls between the ages of 13 and 17 who'd been through the foster care. And it was kind of like the end of the rope for them. You know, they needed somewhere to be. And so her role was a teacher in their literacy program. And so she helped to teach these girls to read. The reading levels were all different levels because of their past histories. She was happily married. She had a 2-year-old little boy and was pregnant with her second baby. They had just built a house in August, 4 months before the accident. And on December 20th, 2011, she was out in the community with a couple of the girls, her and her co-worker, and they had just raised money. They were teaching them how to be good citizens and things that, you know, make you a good citizen in society. So they had raised money. They were going to adopt a child, and they had just made a call to their boss to say, look what we've done. These girls are, you know, they're magnificent. And they were very happy, her and her co-worker. They were on their way back to the group home, which is about 3 blocks away. They were stopped, waiting to turn left, and a transport truck driver who was texting and driving, having an argument with his girlfriend on his phone, hit them. He pushed their vehicle into the oncoming traffic, where they were hit yet again a second time, T-boned. And my daughter, who was the passenger in the front seat, Andrea, and the driver were killed instantly.
Oh,
That is the day when my life was shattered in a way I had never experienced before. And I didn't think that I would survive. Yet I didn't think I would know how to breathe from one moment to the next, let alone survive. And here I am today.
I know. Look at you. You're an author. You've been educating yourself in bereavement and working with people and connecting with people who have had similar
Mhm.
experiences to you. And I mean, I can't even ascertain the amount of grief that you and your
Mhm.
family and everybody has had to go through. So that in itself is huge. And I guess the other thing is too, it's not just even the loss of Andrea that you lost that day. You also lost your second unborn grandchild at the same
I
time.
lost a future grandchild. Yes.
Yeah, that is absolutely huge. So can you walk us through like that journey? Because I know previously you and I had a conversation and you were saying like it's then with everything that's going on. I mean, you've got everything going on with the grief, with the loss of Andrea and how that's turned your world upside down. But then it was like the second losses, like you were, do you know what I mean? Because grief doesn't just, it's not just the loss of that one particular person. Like your whole life change. It's like your whole life just shatters
Mhm.
into pieces. So are you able to walk us through a little bit of that journey too?
Yes, you don't realize it at the time, but the secondary losses of grief are immense, depending, everybody's grief is different. Grief is not linear. Grief has no stages, and it's just as unique as your fingerprint because we are also unique and we come with different life experiences and different family and our upbringing, and it's just, all of those things factor in, and that's why grief is as unique as our fingerprint. For the second in the beginning you don't see the secondary losses. All you feel is just pain and devastation, but definitely, I lost my future, my past, my present. I lost the family unit of Andrea and her husband and my grandson, and just that whole family unit, that
Yeah,
extension of my heart, and it was shattered and gone. um, Going through those early days where I mean, grief is a whole body experience.
yeah,
It grief and trauma, it affects our body physically, mentally, cognitively, emotionally, socially, and in every way. Physically, I felt like I wasn't here. I was like a robot existing, just doing the things that were expected of me, things that I was told to do. In the beginning, my husband took a month off work. I was highly medicated, and I was just completely sleeping most of the time. He would tell me when it was time to eat, when it was time to drink. Have you drank today? I just those normal activities of daily living are just non-existent when you're in so much deep pain and sorrow. And that then gradually he went back to work. Um, and you make those small, tiny steps to bring yourself forward out of that dark moment into the light of life again, like brushing your teeth, having a shower, all those things that, you have to start off with the tiny, tiny little actions that
yeah,
bring you from that moment. And
absolutely.
mhm,
Yeah, because it's hard, isn't it? Especially
it
when
is.
you're feeling in so much pain and with everything that's going on. I think you said it so beautifully and so well in the sense of you had to basically learn to get back up again and thank goodness that your husband was there to make sure that you are eating and making sure that you are
Mhm,
drinking because you become, I guess, so lost
mhm.
in it all. It really does
Well,
consume you,
it's
doesn't it?
just, it's you're just so absorbed in
Yeah.
this emotional trauma,
Yeah,
and you can't think, you can't make a sentence cognitively. You forget things, even 4, 5, 6 months in, you're just cognitively, your brain is damaged.
yeah,
Trauma damages our brain, right? And
absolutely.
so you're just not there. And physically, like, I mean, people that have heart disease or you have medical issues that you normally would have been looking after quite well, um, when this sort of thing happens, you're not going to take your medicine. You're
Yeah.
not going to remember to take your pills. You're not going to remember to look after yourself. That's why, for me, I went to the doctor quite regularly. In the beginning, it was like every 2 weeks, then it was once a month. And you need that extra set of eyes to look at you because you can't see all the things that need to be done. All you just I just remember the devastating pain. And I remember it was like an out of body experience. I could
Mhm.
hear people, their voices. I could feel my heart beating, but I was not here.
Yeah.
I was just wherever she was and I wanted to be wherever she was.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's just a
Mhm,
natural thing, is to wanting to be there where
mhm,
she
yeah.
is. So what made you, so I mean your husband went back to work, so basically you had to start caring for yourself, but what made you, because now all of a sudden, like, you have been studying this and you've written this book and you're on the road like promoting the book that you've written, plus you've had Andrea's book published. So how did you go from being in amongst all of this grief and all of this pain and
Mhm.
struggling to really look after yourself, to now all of a sudden being this author and doing all of everything that you're doing?
Well, I mean, it's a process, right? It's a process. And as I said, people have asked me, like, it's been 13 years. How did you do this? Just like what you just said, right?
Mm,
How did you do this? And so I was laying in bed one night and I thought, how there has to be a way. I have to find a way to explain other than just, I don't know, time. Time has a way of pushing us through life. We all know that. And it's a passageway. And, even when it comes to anything in life, our children growing, we blink our eyes, they grow up. And so time has a way of transporting us from those ugly days to weeks to months and then, there we are 6 months later, a year later. That's part of it. But I just wanted, to come up with something that would explain what I did to get to where I am today. And so I came up with my own little uh, pillars of hope and the triple A concept. And it's acknowledgement, action, and appreciation. And basically, that's what I did for 13 years. In the beginning, with grief, you have to acknowledge it. In those early days, you have to cry. You have to shed those tears.
absolutely.
You have to, all those feelings, emotions that you have, the anger, you need to express the anger. You need to yell. You need to scream. You need to acknowledge your fears. You need to, I remember Andrea's favorite store in the mall was she loved purses. And so this store sold purses. And I remember probably 6 months after going into the store thinking, I can handle this, right? And I went into the store and, well, I was a puddle sitting on a bench in the mall. And I said, okay, that is a trigger that I can avoid. I don't have to, you do have to. So I decided, I needed to face my fears. And then I didn't, with the transport truck driver, I didn't drive for about 2 years. I was afraid to drive because even now when I see a transport truck driver and I'm driving, I have to turn my eyes, I have to turn the music up, I have to do something until that truck is gone. But you have to face your fears. You have to, face your anger. You have to feel the pain, acknowledgement. And then later on, with that kind of acknowledgement, there's other ways of acknowledging, journaling. Um, I'm still acknowledging, telling my story,
Mm.
right? So acknowledgement is really, really important. It's not denying that the pain is there. It's not denying that the situation happened. It's just acknowledging and it gives validation. When
Yeah.
you acknowledge, it gives validation to your pain and suffering. And then the actions, the tiny actions that I mentioned, in the beginning, it's like, and that's how it started with my husband asking me, so when's the last time you showered? I don't know, right? When's the last time you brushed your teeth? I had no idea
Yeah.
because I had to be directed what to do. And then when he went back to work, I thought, couldn't remember because cognitively can't remember
Yeah.
anything. So I just had this agenda and I wrote down shower. And so it would remind me, and I would shower. And then it was my tiny little small step of success that I was able to care for myself. And then you start building on those tiny small actions. And, they have to be achievable actions. If, you can't set yourself up for failure and make this big goal that you can't achieve. And then I would celebrate. He'd come home from work and I'd say, guess what I did today? I showered. And it was huge. It
Yeah.
was huge. I had to celebrate what I was, those tiny small actions. And that's how, those actions, then you start, creating the goals that are a little bigger. Or maybe I could do two things in one day. Or, I could make a phone call. Or later on, I would go out the front door and look at the sky and feel the warmth of the sun. And then I would move myself a little more and walk around the block. And then walking became a huge tool for me. That's how my book was born. I was out walking one day. So the small actions and, learning to smile without guilt, and then with doing all those actions and you're letting the light of life come in again, then gratitude comes into your life and you learn to be grateful, and you have to allow yourself and give permission to be grateful, because life is precious. At the end of the day, couldn't tell me that in the beginning, but it's a process. You acknowledge everything, you take your tiny, small, achievable goals, and it moves you forward. It gives you something to look forward to. And then you build on that. Rome wasn't built in a day,
No,
right?
it definitely was not built in a day. And and
So,
I love that in the set that you were celebrating just even the smallest things about, look, oh my goodness, like I took a shower today. Because when you are in the depths of grief and, with the loss of a child, and even, for those of us who've stepped
trauma.
out of relationships with narcissistic abuse, having a shower and making yourself go and do those things can seem like the most daunting, hardest task of all.
Mhm.
But I love that you celebrated that and that your husband celebrated that with you, because then that
Yes.
has helped you
Mhm.
then take those further steps forward. And like you said, you made it to the front door, looking outside, allowing the sun,
Mhm.
taking
And
yourself
then
for a walk, and just doing those little things to build
Mhm. And
you up.
believe me, there was lots of days in between there where I didn't step outside. And even now, I mean, depression and anxiety, those are some of the lifelong things from trauma and grief that that is with us forever, right? So
Absolutely.
even, if you have to go to bed and you stay to bed and you can't have your shower, and you can't even if you don't attain any of those goals, it's okay to stay in bed. It's okay
Yeah.
to let grief have its space, because grief and trauma, it has to be dealt with, and you need to give it the time and the space. And if going to bed and not dealing with life is what it's all about, it's just that you don't stay there,
Yeah.
right? I still have days when I'm like, oh my gosh, especially for me in the winter, those dark, dreary days. The days are shorter, and it's just not as easy. It's more difficult to deal with grief and those things. On the weather it affects us, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, to go to bed, and what, you don't feel guilty about that either,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
And
gradually stepping outside and putting yourself into back into life again. I went to a support group, and I was around like-minded mothers, about 8 mothers, and they'd all lost their children. And I felt safe, seen, heard, and we could all express, and it was amazing support. And then the support of the doctor. And then I had a counselor. I had the same counselor for 9 years.
wow. Wow. But
Some
that's
people might
great.
say, wow, like you had a counselor for 9 years? Yeah, I sure did. And who knows, maybe if next year I need to go to a counselor, so be it. because
Absolutely.
grief never ends.
No, no, it doesn't. And you know, it has this unique way of A, opening us up, but B, it is something that you will always carry. This experience is something that you always
Hmm.
carry.
Hmm.
I mean, adversity does that to each and every one of us. But I love how you have
Oh, for
said
sure.
it's about acknowledging it. It's about
Hmm.
taking action, whatever those
Hmm.
actionable steps are for you. And then it is absolutely appreciating it. And I think
Hmm.
it teaches you. It
Hmm.
teaches you and it opens you up into so many different things. I mean,
Well,
look at what you're
all
doing
of
now.
that, when you do all those things, it's you cultivating hope,
Yeah,
bringing hope back into your life. And
yeah,
we all need hope, right? Hope
absolutely.
is the anchor in trauma and grief.
Yeah.
And so by doing all those little things at first and gradually, building on them, you're allowing hope to come back into your life again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it means there was a lot of love too. I mean, there's so much love, isn't there? That's
Yeah.
that's still there. There's always going to be. Love never fades. Love is always right
Is
there.
eternal. Love
Yeah,
is eternal,
it really is.
right?
Absolutely.
And I just spoke at I wouldn't call it a summit. Anyway, I was a speaker at this Echoes of Love
I love that.
creation that this woman had, and she needed speakers. And, love just ripples, I mean, love just ripples through time. Andrea's book, her words, that just, it's just forever, love is forever.
Yeah. That is so beautiful. So if people want to purchase your book and Andrea's book, how can they do that?
My website is authorlindahenderson.com. Pretty
Beautiful.
easy. Both books can be purchased from there, and they're both available on Amazon. The Road of Love and Hope is available under the title and my name, Linda Henderson. Andrea's book is the Spooky Meets a Friend, but it's under her name, Andrea Watkins, because she was a kid at the time. And
Yeah.
so it's under her name, but Spooky
That
Meets a Friend. Yeah.
That is so cool. And what I'll do is for everybody who wants to purchase your book, I will put the links and the details in
Hmm.
when I bring this out. So that will be
Yeah.
beautiful. So I'll put in the website address and that for people
Oh,
to be able
perfect.
to do that. But I think
Thank you.
what an amazing tribute. What a beautiful gift that you are gifting to Andrea by honoring her with her book and with your book, as well
Hmm.
as for yourself, but also in helping others who,
Hmm.
who are going through this, who are going through the thick of it right now. Like, I think,
Hmm.
yeah, what an
Well, when I wrote the book,
gift.
I wanted it to be relatable. I wanted, a brokenhearted mother, but I mean, I've been told that it's been so beneficial to people because I talk a lot about trauma and the grief, and it doesn't have to necessarily be child loss. People have read it that have not ever lost a child, and they relate it to some other trauma in their life that it's the hurt, it's the pain, it's how you work through that. And I wanted it to just be relatable, not something that's complicated. I remember in the first 6 months of my loss thinking I wanted to read as many books as I could about near death experiences because I was born and raised in a Christian home and I believe in heaven, but I just almost wanted that I don't know, confirmation. And so one of the books I read was I thought I've been a nurse for 37 years. I can read this book, and it was by a psychologist or something that had and experienced near-death experience. And when I started reading it, it was so deep with the medical jargon. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't deal with this right now. My grief brain just can't deal with this. So that's why I said, when I write this book, I want it to be relatable. I want someone to be able to just say, yeah, that's me. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
So, and it's the road of love and hope.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think, you're right. grief transcends across so many different situations and experiences because
Absolutely.
we all have gone through, adverse times. And it is, I mean, I even know for myself, I struggled to want to get out of bed, to remind
Mm-hmm.
myself to have a shower and to do those sorts of things
Mm-hmm.
because you are in the depths of grief. But I do love how you've reminded everybody that it's really important to take that time and that space just to allow grief to have the space, but just do not stay there. And I think that's
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
most important thing is it's okay to grieve and to give yourself permission to grieve. And it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to feel how you feel. But the most
Mm-hmm.
important thing is start taking those teeny tiny steps to continually
Mm-hmm.
to take action to move forward because
And to be patient and gentle with yourself,
absolutely, 100%.
right?
Yeah, to be so compassionate with yourself, especially at those
Mm-hmm.
particular times, and and still celebrate you in the process. I love that. I
Mm-hmm.
love that you said I had a shower today and we celebrated. I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And,
absolutely.
you
You
know,
need
we
that.
all have the power within. We
Yes,
all have the power within. We just have to realize that. We just have to, work at it and let our voice shine. And,
absolutely.
I've been there, I've done it. Well, I can't say I've done it. I've been through that dark forest and
Yeah,
I do see light. So
yeah,
it's possible. And if
absolutely.
I can do it, then you can too. That's what I always say.
100%. I always say that to people too. I'm like, if I can do this, I know you can do it. So absolutely. Like it is because you just sometimes cannot see the forest for the trees because it does
Hmm.
feel so dark. It feels so gloomy. It just, you feel so, like so
Hmm.
suppressed by it all. But it's really important. Linda,
It,
thank you so much for chatting with us today, for sharing your story. Like, honestly, I so appreciate that. I really do. I absolutely will put the links in for where everybody can purchase a book. But if you just want to
mhm.
say, what's your website again for everybody?
Author Linda Henderson, Henderson.com.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, thank you ever so much. Thank you for doing the work that you do. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on Rise Up and Heal today to share your
Oh,
story.
thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And we can rise up and heal. I love that title.
Yeah.
We can rise up and heal and become a new version of ourselves.
Absolutely. We 100% have that choice and we have that
Mhm.
opportunity. So, yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.